8 things that drive the value of your company. So today's jam, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Built to Sell, the book Built to Sell, and the relationship to the value builder system. We're going to talk about what a prospective buyer is really looking for when they buy your company. We're going to get into the transaction multiple and explain what that M&A lingo jargon really means to you. We're going to then dig into the big part of the presentation, the 8 things that drive the value of your company. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to benchmark your business against those value drivers, and then I'm going to open it up to Q&A. So, some background on me. I'm Glenn Grant, Selfassembled Ventures. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneur journey long before 2009, but in 2009, I started my business G2 Tech Group. We specialized in small business outsourced IT, so we were the printer boys and printer girls of the world. In 2012, I pivoted my business to manage cloud and manage DevOps. So in my space, outsourced IT, very competitive space, lots of other providers around. So this differentiated us in the market, took us to a little bit of a different place. In 2017, I started the process of selling my business. And then in 2018, I ultimately sold my business to a private equity firm called Great Hill Partners. And then in 2020, I became a business coach and a certified value builder. So some backstory, Built to Sell to Value Builder. So if you've never read the book Built to Sell, I highly recommend you read it. It is probably my favorite business book that is out there. It was the first business book that I ever read. It's a parable, so it's a story. It's not a textbook about a fictional entrepreneur who finds out one day from his mentor and advisor that his business actually isn't worth anything to anybody but him, which is very disappointing because he was burnt out and wanted to sell his business. So in the story, he learns about the things that make his business more valuable and what he can do about it to get his business to a spot where it is actually valuable to acquire and someday can actually be sold to somebody who will pay good money for it. So this book was written by John Warlow. And I read this book and I started following the methodology in this book right away. And the first takeaway I got from this book was don't try to sell everything to everyone, which I was totally doing. So I went back to the office and I said, guess what, guys? We're not doing websites anymore, and we're not doing this, and we're not doing that, and we're going to focus on the one thing that we do best. And it made life so much easier and more profitable. And there was a number of other things in the book that I learned. Well, I learned them all in the first read, but learned again over time. I've never read the book, honestly. I listened to it on Audible because I don't read the book. So I re-listened to it probably 6 or 7 times. And every time I would grab another piece of that methodology in the story and implement it in my business. I read it probably every year to 18 months, or listened to it rather. So fast forward, sell my business. I'm on Built to Sell Radio being interviewed by John Warlow, and he tells me that he has created the value builder system, which is actually some structure around all the methodology in the Built to Sell book, which, you know, value builder didn't exist when I had my business, but I can attest firsthand a lot that I learned from that book came true and came true in a good, big way for me. So I was very intrigued, jumped into the value builder system, and now I use it for a lot of my coaching. So, what are buyers really looking for when they buy your business? Well, the answer may be surprising and then not so surprising, but not very obvious either. What they're really looking for is your future stream of profits. That's what someone is buying when they buy your business. So anything that we can do to protect that stream of profits, to make that stream keep on flowing, to paint a picture that it's going to flow longer and wider in the future and faster, that is all going to add up to increasing the value of your business. Because someone isn't just buying your business to keep it where it's at, right? They want to grow it and they want to run it over time. So, you know, a very simple math, they want to spend $10 to buy your business and they want to make $100 from your business over the next few years and then get to keep $90 profit, right? So they want to see that the stream is going to keep on flowing. And that is a big driver behind the value of your business and why someone would pay more for your business if they think they can make even more than that in the future, right? So if you want somebody to pay more for your business, they've got to see a way where they're going to exponentially make more than what they spend on it when they buy it from you. So let's talk about the multiple, because it's some M&A lingo that I didn't really understand until I actually really got into the process of selling my business and, did some research, was educated by my M&A advisor. But a multiple, or the transaction multiple, is a method by where we look at past M&A transactions and value a comparable company using precedents. So it's very similar to the real estate market, right? You're going to sell your house, you look for comps in the neighborhood, then you can set a price, right? So what the multiple does is it sort of allows a normalization comparison between different businesses of the same sort of type and industry, right? So I have a very oversimplified example here on the screen. Business A, small business, does $8 million in revenue. They're doing about 7% net profit, so $560K a year. And using the standard baseline multiple of 3.5, the sale price of that business would be about $1.9 million. Now, business B, same industry, relatively the same size. They're not a $100 million enterprise. But they're doing $5 million in revenue, but they're crushing it on profitability, right? They're doing 20% net profit. So that business is actually worth $3.5 million to a buyer, because that future stream of profits is looking a lot rosier because there is more of it coming in down the line. So the business is doing $3 million of less revenue, but it's worth almost twice as much to a buyer. So the multiple is really how an industry can say, hey, I'm buying, this design firm, and let me see what design firms are going for. This one looks a little bit different in shape and size, but this is roughly the value of that type of business in their industry. So industry impacts your multiple for sure, right? There are different types of businesses that are just more valuable than others based on historical precedents. So here's a chart that outlines some of them, right? The overall multiple average going rate for small businesses is 3.5 times EBITDA, and that is generally a starting point that everybody uses when valuing a business, and then it goes, up or down from there. But by this chart, you can see a manufacturing business is worth much more than a finance insurance business, and is worth even more than administrative support and waste management, with a multiple of, average multiple of 1.8x. So there's some outliers that aren't even on this chart. For example, software companies are right now trading at 19 times EBITDA. So 19x multiple is a very good multiple, and that's why my next business will be a software company, because the multiples are a lot higher, and once you get it rocking, the overhead is a lot lower, and software companies are worth a lot more. Not only to the buyer, but to you when you own them. If you're in the services business, you understand how much work it is when you have more and more employees. So that's some background on the multiple. I know it's a little simplistic and oversimplified, but it makes the rest of the story make so much more sense. So most owners focus only on increasing profits when they go to sell your business. And that was me. I was going to sell my business, decided, hey, it's time. And I had been growing my business and reinvesting profit over and over and over again. And I said, okay, I got to cut that out for a year, get EBITDA up, put it on the books, then go to market and sell my business. My M&A advisor actually said, EBITDA is good, but it's not everything. And because of your type of business, Glenn, and its unique nature, we should go out to market now anyway, because I don't think that's going to be as much factor as you think it is. So if we look at how profit impacts the value of your business to a buyer, right? Future stream of profits. So I was planning on working harder to increase profit. So let's say I had 800K profit. I go out and grind it out, have a year that came out at 900K. If we use the standard industry multiple of 3.5, then that business would be worth $350,000 more than it was before I increased that profitability. Now, smart owners also focus on the multiple. So, same business, but we didn't do any work to increase profitability, but we did a lot of work to increase the multiple. Now, if you're trading this company, same profit at a multiple of 5, that company is now $1.2 million more valuable than it would have been otherwise, right? So taking action to increase the multiple in conjunction with increasing revenue and profitability is the way to make your company more and more valuable. And sometimes, depending on the state of your company, it's going to be easier to do the things, the housekeeping and adjustments to get your multiple up a little higher than it is to squeeze more profit out without maybe getting over a pretty costly growth hump or some other obstacle. Hey, we're all working really hard to try to make our businesses more profitable. It ain't easy, right? So, what gets measured gets done. Let's talk about the Value Builder system, and more specifically, the 8 things that drive company value, right? So, when I sold my company, I can tell you firsthand that these 8 areas were drilled into by the buyer. They were a sophisticated buyer, private equity group. They buy and sell companies for a living. That's what they do. And they for sure dug into all of these areas. Now, this is on top of the normal due diligence process, right? They're going to go through your contracts and your legal background and your tax returns and make sure you're not cheating on your taxes and you got the right corporate entity papers in place and all that boring stuff, right? That they will do too. These are the things that basically impact your multiple. And I'm going to tell you why they impact your multiple and how they are valuable to a buyer. So the first driver, which is my least favorite driver because it's the boringest driver, is financial performance. Because if you've been an entrepreneur for more than a year and survived that first year, then you already pretty much get this. It's simple math. You need to bring in more money than you spend on expenses or you go out of business, right? You want to have a bigger company with more revenue, and even more, you want to have a bigger company with more revenue and more profit, right? So your history of producing revenue and profit combined with the professionalism of your record keeping, right? Because there is a little element of, are your books good? Is this for real? Revenue size will increase your multiple. And ironically, with this driver, it's this value times a multiple. But the bigger your company is, the more valuable you are. And how consistent it has been in the past. And then your top line, revenue, bottom line, profit, right? So bigger companies do get bigger multiples. So industry is a factor. These AQ drivers are a factor. The size of revenue is definitely a factor. You might have heard the magic number of $10 million in revenue makes your business more valuable. And it is true. And you can see by this chart here that you'll get a higher multiple if you have $10 million in revenue than you will if you have $1 million in revenue, right? So the average small business that is transacted is actually between $1 and $3 million. And the multiple of 3.5 is right there in that ballpark. Now, there's a number of different reasons why a business of $10 million in revenue or more is more valuable. But one of the most interesting ones that made a lot of sense to me was a financial one. And that is that a financial buyer is a sophisticated buyer. They're buying and selling businesses, and they're in the business of managing money. So if your business is doing $10 million in revenue and they acquire it, they can instantly turn around and go to a bank and get a line of credit or a loan for 10% of your receivables. $1 million, right? So you can do a lot with $1 million to grow a company. You can make strategic hires of senior leadership. You can invest in sales and marketing. You can acquire another small business, right? And instantly increase your revenue size. So there's a lot you can do with $1 million. And if you have $1 million business, there's not a whole lot you can do with $50,000 to $100,000 when we're talking about those type of things, right? So the leverage they gain by having an asset that has receivables at that level gives them more flexibility to do their banker thing, right? It's cheaper money. Their money from the limited partners is more expensive than borrowing it from a bank when interest rates are at a historic low. And that's one of the bigger secrets behind that $10 million mark and why it's important. I thought it was really interesting when I learned that, so I figured I'd share it with you. Driver number 2, growth potential. So the likelihood to grow your business in the future and at what rate. How big can you grow your business? How many more products or services can you offer? How many more markets can you get into? So bring this back to the future stream of profits. How wide and how long and how deep can this stream go? The buyer wants to see that there's a future. Because the buyer is buying your business to take it somewhere. It's their new toy. If you already have 95% of the addressable market as customers, there's only 5% to grow. That's not exciting. How am I going to get $90 for the 10 that I spend if there's no more people to buy, right? They don't want to spend $10 and make $1. That's not sexy. That's not exciting. That's not a good time investment for them, and it's not a good place to put their money to work. So, also for you, while you own the business, you want to see that there's a bigger future. You want there to be a lower barrier to get into those new markets and to sell these new services and create more opportunities to get new revenue coming in. So the buyer wants to see that there's a big, bright future, and to the extent that we can make that true or paint that picture for them, the more valuable your company would be. So you might have been considering maybe getting into a different market, but you just don't want to do it because of the time commitment and the energy. You may want to dip a toe in it so that you have, it's sort of that needle threaded, so that if you do talk to a prospective buyer, you can say, hey, I wanted to get into this market, but I haven't had time, but you sure can, right? Because a sophisticated financial buyer, private equity in particular, their claim to fame is that they know sales and marketing really well and they have the capital to put behind it. And they are right. So they buy businesses that are healthy, that make money. When they see an opportunity where they can juice up sales and marketing and grow that exponentially and then sell it to a bigger private equity firm, they make a move. So there has to be something for them to grow into, and that increases the value of the business. Driver number 3, the Switzerland structure. How dependent your business is on any one employee, customer, or supplier. So going in reverse order, supplier. If you have one major supplier and that major supplier cuts you off, changes their pricing structure, or goes out of business, you are in trouble. That could jeopardize your business. So not being beholden to one supplier is very important. Not so much bringing your multiple up, but that's something that will bring your multiple down, right? That can devalue your company. In my old business, we were an Amazon Web Services service provider. If Amazon decided to no longer have a partner network, we would be in trouble. So we kept the door open with Google Compute Cloud and Microsoft Azure so that we had places to go and we were engaged with those companies and we had some skills going there as well. And for us, that actually was dual purpose. It was growth potential for the new buyer. Hey, we can be multi-cloud if you want to continue to invest. But we also had backup plans in case something went wrong with that supplier. Customer. You don't want to have one customer be 50% of your revenue, for example. So high concentration in revenue in too few customers is dangerous and risky for the buyer. And risk means I'm going to pay you less, right? Because if that customer decides to go away or goes out of business or doesn't like it that you sold the company and no longer wants to do business with the new owner, they lose a ton of revenue. So I had a rule in my business. I was always shooting for having no customer account for more than 10% of my revenue. That way, if one customer left and it happened to be the biggest customer, 90% of my revenue is still going to be there. And that makes you sleep at night so much better. The other part about it is that if you have a big whale customer like that and you're really that dependent on them to survive, they're kind of your boss. And entrepreneurs don't like to have bosses because bosses suck. That's why we got into business in the first place. So customer concentration, another big one. And the last one is employees, right? One scenario that can devalue you is that one employee that knows everything, has it in their head and won't write it down and nobody knows anything. And if they decide to walk or get hit by a bus, you're, out of business or close to it. Danger. That one you have to address by cross-training, having people to do, multiple people know how to do the same job, getting documentation in place, all that boring stuff. The other thing about employees is you might have a key employee that's either a senior leader, makes the world go round, a top earner. In that respect, you want to have what you've probably heard of as golden handcuffs in place, right? There's incentives there to keep them working in the business and keep them working in the business past a change of control event. You sell the business, they are incented to stay with that business at least a year, right? So that can be phantom stock, that can be bonuses, that can be a number of different tools that are available out there. But getting those key players that do make you a little bit vulnerable, locked up in a way where you can show the new buyer, hey, they're incentivized to stay. And at some point in this process, you can talk with them and they're going to tell you we want to stay because we want to make these dreams come true. So that's the Switzerland structure. Driver number 4. The valuation teeter-totter. This is really about cash flow. Is your business a cash suck or a cash generator? Are you always dipping into a line of credit to pay payroll, or do you have plenty of cash in your bank account to pay payroll, right? So some businesses, for example, ones that work with the government and public sector a lot, they deliver service and the government might not pay them for 6 months, which is why I never did any business in that industry, in that sector. But it has to be done. Someone's got to do it. But they're constantly spending all the money on their expenses before they're getting the revenue. And those businesses are worth less than a business who maybe charges up front 50% deposit before they begin a project, or charges monthly reoccurring revenue models where you get billed on the first of the month automatically and the customer pays for the month pretty much in advance of you delivering any service whatsoever. If you're getting paid up front, you are accumulating cash in your bank account that you can use to pay your expenses and grow your company. If you're getting paid in the rears, you have to borrow money or dip into a line of credit, and then when you get the money, you don't get to keep it, you're paying off your debt, and a buyer who does not want to do that. And if they do want to get into debt instruments, they want to do it to invest in growth, not to keep the lights on, right? So cash flow and bigger margins and profitability are definitely important to the value of your company. Because again, we go back to that model where they can borrow against it. If they've got to constantly feed it just to keep it alive, that just makes the job of growing the business that much harder. Driver number 5, one of my 2 favorite drivers, because I am a reoccurring revenue guy and an avoid earnout guy. So reoccurring revenue. So the proportion and quantity of automatic annuity-based revenue you collect each month, right? So back to that future stream of profits. Reoccurring revenue is going to keep that stream on flowing, right? So do you have reoccurring revenue? What's the total percentage of reoccurring revenue? What kind of reoccurring revenue is it? Is it monthly reoccurring revenue with month-to-month contracts? Is it annual contracts? Do we have some 3-year contracts? Is it annual reoccurring revenue? If you think about all the software as a service subscriptions you probably have, they're $5 a month or $4 a month if you pay annually. We'll give you a discount, but we'll get that all up front. They're all reoccurring revenue models, and they're software models on top of it. And that's why those businesses are worth so much, and why that will most likely be my next business. But reoccurring revenue, future stream of profits, it takes a lot of risk out for the buyer, and the more that they can see that you have longer term contracts or a long history of customer retention, the more valuable your company will be. Also, while you own it, right? You are the current buyer, right? You own this business. It's better for you if the revenue keeps on flowing, right? We got that stream of profits going. Let's keep it going. And you'll sleep better at night, and you can focus your sales efforts on selling and bringing in new business as opposed to reselling old business over and over and over again, which is nerve-wracking. Companies with 75% recurring revenue get much better offers. So here's some data that was provided by Value Builder. They do a lot of market research. They interview a lot of entrepreneurs on Built to Sell Radio to get these stats. But you can see here that the average multiple for a business that's 75% of revenue or more is much higher than if it's not. My business was about 70% reoccurring revenue, and that revenue was valued much, 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 much higher than the other 30%, which was professional services. It was still valued because I made the case that although it wasn't recurring revenue, it was reoccurring non-recurring revenue, which is sort of a PE guy joke. But it's true. It kept coming back, but it wasn't under contract. So they did value it more than one-time revenue, but not nearly as much as the reoccurring revenue contracts. Driver number 6, monopoly control. So this is how differentiated in your business is from competitors in your industry. So what makes your business different? What makes your what prevents people from stealing your customers? If you're different and you're the only one people can get what you have, you're the only one that people can get what you have from, rather, then you're a more valuable business. So a great book on this is called Blue Ocean Strategy. And the basic premise of the book is you want to be in the blue ocean. You swim away from everybody else. You're out there in the water by yourself and it's peaceful and you're the only one there. The red ocean is where there are tons of sharks and blood in the water. And everybody looks the same and everybody's fighting over the same business. And that is where you get into the commoditized situation where, you know, when I had my IT company, there was tons of sharks. Everybody was doing small business IT. There was, you know, probably 10 EOers in my chapter and 25 IT companies within, you know, a 3-mile radius in downtown Boston. And if I said I would do it for $100 a seat, this person would say they would do it for $95. The next person would say they would do it for $90. And the price starts to drop. You're getting downward pressure. Prospects could go out and get 8 quotes of apples to apples to apples to apples, and basically shop on price and what they perceive as a reliable product as well. But price tends to be the biggest thing. So if you are a unique business and you're differentiated, not only do you have sort of a competitive moat around you because you're the only one who has what you have, but you also have the ability to set your prices, right? So I was in that IT space. I pivoted to manage cloud and then again to manage DevOps. And I was in more of an apples to oranges situation. Sure, there was other companies out there that did IT and some of them worked in the cloud too, but I specialized in the cloud and then I specialized in a cloud specialization. And I really had no competition for a long time because there was no apples to apples comparison in my market for what I did. And that allowed me to keep my prices higher and also prevented customers from getting poached by competitors, you know, left and right. Like in IT space, just small business IT, it was brutal. So monopoly control, how different and how special is your business, and how can we make your business that much more interesting or special? And that will increase the value of your business. So companies with monopoly control in their market can get 50% higher offers. If you're super unique and special, you're going to get more money. You know, we see the extreme cases of it all the time in the .com world where somebody makes something super unique called Instagram and Facebook's just like, I must have that, right? So if you have something that's super unique and hot and exciting, you will get more money for that for sure. Driver number 7. Customer satisfaction. So happy customers means that revenue stream's going to keep on flowing, right? They're going to keep buying from you. They're also going to refer you to other people, which is going to make more revenue coming in. So customer satisfaction, very important. The gold standard in the industry for measuring customer satisfaction is called the Net Promoter Score, or NPS. And if you're not familiar with it, you probably are and don't even realize it, because you've probably filled out an NPS survey many times. It's that survey that says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer our product or services to a friend or colleague? That is a Net Promoter Score survey. It's fairly scientific. There's a lot of studies behind it. The data has been proven over and over again, and it is the gold standard in the industry for measuring customer satisfaction. So when I sold my business, Great Hill Partners actually called almost every single one of my customers and interviewed them. They wanted to know how happy they were. They wanted to know how, if they would continue being a customer. And they wanted to get a sense for how likely it was that they were going to continue being a customer. They just wanted to, and they also wanted to know how attached they were to me, and that if I was no longer in the picture, would they remain being a customer? They asked these in really unique ways, so it wasn't alarming to them, and I gave them permission to reach out to customers. So a buyer, will have to agree to your terms there. But they will do that, and they did do that. And then I was also able to provide them years of Net Promoter Scores to back that up even further. This is what the customer's been saying. This is what the customer has really been doing. And now you heard it from them firsthand, and that will make your company more valuable. Again, that future stream of profits. Anything that's going to keep it flowing and growing and going further is going to make your company more valuable. So last one, my other favorite one, is hub and spoke. And basically, is the owner the center of the universe, right? How would your business perform if you were unexpectedly unable to work for a period of 3 months, right? You got sick or you needed to do something and you're out of the game for 3 months. Is your business going to be fine? Is it going to grow without you? Is it going to be in big trouble? Is it going to shrink or go out of business? What's going to happen, right? So how dependent is the company on that owner? Is that owner the center of all the customer relationships? Is that owner the center of all the operations? Is that owner the center of this business's universe? If it is true that you are the center of all these things, your business is going to be worth less to the buyer. Because if you leave the equation, it can put that stream of profits at risk. So this one's a double whammy, because not only does it affect the value of your business, it also is one of the biggest things that lends itself to an earnout situation. So an earnout scenario is where somebody buys your company, but most of the profits from the sale of that business are contingent on you continuing to work in that business, run that business, and hit certain performance metrics, usually sales numbers and profitability numbers. There may be other goals as well, right? So the buyer's nervous. As long as you're around, that stream's going to keep on flowing. So sure, I'll buy your company, but I'm not going to give you the money until I actually see reality set in that stream kept on flowing. And then you've probably done some things to help wean yourself out of that business. So that is not a lot of fun for most entrepreneurs, right? Most of us are unemployable. That's why we have our own business. And now you're in a situation where not only do you have a boss and a job, right? You're not in charge anymore. But you don't get your money unless these things happen and somebody else is in charge. It could make decisions, for better or for worse, that negatively impact your ability to hit those metrics, right? They might be the best person in the world with the biggest heart, and they might just make some mistakes that you think are foolish, but they're the boss and they own the company, so you got to go along with it. And now you're not hitting your numbers, and now you're not getting paid for your business, and that sucks. So I'm very much the anti-earnout guy. I didn't have an earnout. I give a lot of credit to the Built to Sell book for helping me achieve that milestone as well, because I had all these things in pretty good shape by the time I was ready to go sell my business. So hub and spoke. We got to get you out of the center of the world. We got to get the hats off your head. We want to make you as basically inconsequential to the business as possible for the new buyer, right? They want to just get into that car. Nobody wants to buy a car that's that requires you riding shotgun for 3 years, right? They want their own car and they want to drive it wherever they want. They don't want a chaperone. They don't want you to have to come along with the car because you're the only one who how to Fonzie it and get it rolling, get it started. That's not what they want either, and they're going to pay a lot less for it if that's the case. So another part of this is, you don't want that either, right? While you're owning the business, built to sell is also built to own, right? Everything that I talked about today also benefits you as the current owner. You're the buyer now, right? So you don't want to do these things. You don't want to be the center of the universe. You don't want to wear all the hats. You want to go on vacation for 3 months and you want the company to make money, right? And that's also what the future buyer wants. So, in summary, what a prospective buyer is really looking for when they are buying your company is that future stream of profits for all the reasons that we talked about today, right? So that's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind whenever you're making an investment in your business, because not only does it benefit them, but it benefits you while you own it, right? Is what I'm doing and what I'm investing in right now going to make that stream more reliably flow faster, flow deeper, and flow further? If the answer is yes, it's probably a wise investment. If the answer is no, maybe not, right? Your transaction multiple is not set in stone, all right? It's not 3.5. It's not whatever that chart said was for your industry. That is just a starting point. And everything's a negotiation anyway, right? You don't have to take anybody's deal. But that's where the buyer's going to start. And then they're going to do some boring legal due diligence as well. But then they're going to look at those 8 key drivers and the different factors in those 8 buckets. And they're going to decide whether or not your multiple should go up or your multiple should go down if you're too risky, right? And you're going to decide whether your multiple should go up, right? It's a negotiation too. Obviously they're the ones with the money and they're the ones buying it, but you can make the case that no, I'm not going to accept that discount until we have a discussion about how I think that this is a really solid situation for that driver because of A, B, and C, right? This revenue is not at risk. I've got all these years of NPS scores, and we interview the clients, and they say they love the business and they love the team, and then they like Glenn too. But if Glenn wasn't here, it's not going to much matter because Glenn hasn't been doing much for me anyway. He's a great figurehead, but he went on vacation for 3 months, and they didn't miss a beat, right? So obviously, revenue size, profitability brings your multiple up and the number that gets multiplied by up, right? But there's a lot that you can do in your business to also bring that multiple up in those 8 buckets. And finally, these are those 8 drivers, right? And back to that built to sell and built to own thing. So you can really improve your life and the profitability of your company by addressing these areas now. And that new buyer is going to value your company at a higher rate if all of these areas in order. And some of these drivers are more valuable than others, right? There are just some businesses where recurring revenue models just don't work. Like, let's say you were in construction, maybe, there's some businesses that have figured it out. If you build skyscrapers, probably not. It's kind of a one-shot deal and a big deal. But I know other businesses that are small construction companies, and what they do is they build franchises. I know a guy who builds subways. He's built 25 subways, right? He's made a partnership with the franchise channel, and he kind of has reoccurring revenue going on because he's always building another one for these franchisees. So there are some of these drivers you can't do much about, but if you get creative and differentiate yourself, you probably can figure something out that's pretty unique. So where do you stand? Where does your business stand? So if you're wondering how you measure up against the drivers right now, we have a free assessment called the Value Builder Assessment on our website. It's about 15 minutes long. You answer a series of questions, and it's going to produce the Value Builder score and also individual scores on the 8 key drivers of business value. If you want to take that, you can go to our website and take that for free. If you do take it, I encourage you to grade yourself harshly. Answer the questions truthfully, and always, if you're not sure, be a little bit pessimistic with your answer, all right? I've had a lot of people answer it a little bit too rosy, right? We're entrepreneurs. Some of us have bigger egos than other ones, and everything's fantastic and rosy. Well, you're going to get a high score if you answer it that way, and then you won't find out which driver is low, and then you won't have that opportunity to go bring it up. And you can answer the survey any way you want, but when it comes to time to sell your business and somebody's actually going to dig into these areas, they're not just going to take your opinion for it. They're going to make their own assessment, and then they're either going to offer you money for your business or not. So it doesn't really help you to tip the scales unless you're really just, excited to get a high score and you're not really interested in it. But anyway, that's just my advice, is just answer it truthfully, and it will give you a little bit of a roadmap that you can use to address the low-hanging fruit in your business. So with that, I will open it up to questions if anybody has any questions for Q&A time. If you do have any questions you think of later, feel free to email me at glenn.grant@selfassembled.com. You can also book a virtual coffee with me through Calendly. And you can visit me at my website, selfassembled.com. Take that survey if you want, or check out some other information and resources we have about the Value Builder System and the 8 key drivers of business value. So thank you very much for attending, and have yourself a great day.